must take this opportunity to speak against the Democrats' budget reconciliation scheme. All previous COVID-19 bills were passed with bipartisan support. Despite Democrat calls for unity, they are unilaterally pushing a sweeping bill that President Biden's own spokesman admitted has nothing to do with reopening schools this year. In fact, only 5% of what is in this expenditure bill will be used in 2021. This will destroy jobs at a time when so many Americans are desperate to get back to work. And it allows federal funds to go towards abortions. These are just a few of the bill's ill-advised and destructive provisions. But notice that none of these items I mentioned have anything to do with defeating COVID-19. In fact, only 9% focuses on public health measures. Only 9%. These are taxpayer dollars being used to pay for liberal pet projects at a time when millions of Americans are struggling to make ends meet. I talk with them every day. Under President Trump, Congress allocated far more than the $25 billion CDC argued was necessary to reopen schools safely. And I want to reiterate that. We all want schools to open safely. Yet Democrats are on a spending spree and want billions more. At every turn, Democrats are pushing their own ideological agenda. Instead of fighting the pandemic's real immediate threats, we could all agree on dealing with the immediate threats. Republican members have tried to improve this legislation multiple times now. Earlier this month, the Education and Labor Committee held a 14-hour markup where Republicans offered over 30 amendments, and every amendment was opposed by committee Democrats. And this week, my colleagues and I submitted more than a dozen suggested improvements to this bill, focusing on reopening schools, including child care centers, where only 19% in this bill, 19% of this bill for child care is only used in 2021. That's a concern. Child care in rural areas is important. Or workforce development space. We offered amendments in those spaces. I hope that the committee will make all these amendments in order so the full House has an opportunity to vote on them. Mr. Chairman, a $15 minimum wage won't help parents who had to quit their jobs to stay home and educate their children. It won't protect the small business owners whose doors have been shuttered for months. In fact, the CBO estimates it'll put up to 2.7 million jobs at risk. At the very least, those getting the supposed $15 hour minimum wage, most of them that are actually below that right now will end up with a zero wage because they'll lose their jobs. But it makes powerful special interest groups and the left-wing activists happy, just as keeping schools closed placates teachers' unions and abortion funding empowers the same liberal activists. And so it's truly appalling how far the Democrats will go to enact their radical agenda. This bill will not protect struggling Americans. It will hurt them. We should get back to work on bipartisan solutions that are targeted and tied to COVID relief. And before I yield back, I'll say I'm willing to work in that space in a bipartisan fashion, working on the issue relative specifically to COVID relief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.